Hello today. Today we got a little bit to cover. I'm not going to be as long. But one of the things I want to start out with, as I send these videos to you, uh, some of you don't watch them. Some of them you see my face come up. You've gotten one and you say, okay, I'm not going to listen to it. But what I ask you to do is pass it on. Everybody that's on your social website, pass it on to them. Even if you don't want to listen to it, you got something else to do and you don't want to be tied down, whatever, just kind of pass it on to other people so maybe they can get something out of it. If not, they can pass it on. That way we keep sharing the gospel because I can only share it with so many people on my social medias. And once it gets to you, you have people on your social media that's not on mine. So that is how we began to spread the gospel throughout the earth and taking it everywhere. So I want to start off today. I was reading, and I'm going to share it with you. And it says, Paul in Romans 3:1, Paul said, all people stand guilty before God. It said Paul took common excuses such as we use today. If you talk to people today, we all got excuses. And Paul said some of the people use this excuse for not going to church, not accepting the Lord. The first thing they'll say, there is no God, or I follow my conscience. Number two is Paul said, they said, well, I'm not as bad as other people. And number three, some of the people said, well, I'm a church member. I'm a religious person. One of the things that he finished up with is saying, no one will be exempted from God's judgment of sin. Every person must accept that he or she is sinful and condemned by God. When you accept that you're a sinful person and you are condemned by God, only then can God's wonderful gifts of salvation be understood and received. And the other thing, it said, admit to yourself and to God that we fit the human pattern and frequently fail to live up to our own standards. What it's saying is, forget God's standards. Forget his standards. It says sometimes we have standards in our life that we can't live up to. Every year people make New Year's resolution and within 2 or 3 weeks, a month, it's broken. So it says forget God's standards. We can't live up to our own standards, much less God's standards. And it said that's a sign that's the first step for forgiveness and healing. When you realize that there's a higher power that can help us to overcome deficiencies and somebody that really care and love us more than we love ourselves, because none of us probably would have the power, the ones that have children, to sacrifice your child for humanity. The other thing is a lot of people say, I know God. But Paul said knowing God's will is not the same as doing it. A lot of people say, yeah, I know it, but following it is another thing. And the last thing I want to leave you with was Romans 2:12 through 15. And it's really interesting because it says people, us, are condemned not for what we don't know, but with what they do know. And what it said is those who know God's written word and law will be judged by them. And it said those who have never seen the Bible still know right from wrong and will be judged because they did not keep even those standards which they did not know. So what it's saying is that it said God has a moral conscience that he put in all human beings. And you know right from wrong. Even a small child know right from wrong. A lot of mothers can agree with me on this. How many times have you told 2-year-old or 3-year-old not to do something or don't touch that? And you notice that they'll move to, I'm going to say a toy. They'll move to that toy. But before they pick that toy up, most times they have to look back at you. And that's a sign that say they know what they're doing is not right. But just like us, they're going to still try you the same way that we'll do things to try God. And there was one more thing in there that I wanted to read in there when it says that although Romans 2:5-11, it says, although we usually are not punished immediately for each sin, God's eventual judgment is certain. We don't know exactly when it will happen, but we know no one will escape the final chapter with the Creator. None of us are saved and unsaved. So we don't know, like sometimes we do something. You got people sometimes go to the store, they'll steal something, get away with it. And they like sharing with their friends, man, I went up in there and I got this and I didn't get caught. So they keep going back and eventually they get caught. And for some reason, they act like somebody's done something to them. They never admit they're wrong. The other thing it said, it's easy for us to see other folks sin. And we don't want to look at our own sin. And we're good at that. I'm good at it sometimes. That I can see what somebody else is doing. And then I can't see my own sin. And then those are things that we have to work on and stay prayed up with God. So I told you I wasn't going to be long today. I want to share that with you because I was reading that. But one of the things that I ask that you do is send it to people on your social media. Don't be ashamed of the gospel. You know, sometimes people really want to get saved. And then they start thinking about how they're going to be perceived with their friends or family members that's unsaved. And instead of you being that beacon of light saying, I'm finna take this step, I know I need it. And maybe God will eventually share with them what I just found. You may be that beacon that draw people to Christ. So take this and share this with the gospel.